And hello and welcome to Boles.tv, Boles.tv. I'm David Boles. And we're getting into the holiday season. Well, I guess we're in the middle of the holiday season. It's 9 a.m. on the East Coast, and wherever you are, good evening, good afternoon, good day. I hope you are doing well. I hope everything is going forward for you and never backward. Interesting things going on that we'll chat about and share today. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve. We will be here live, 9 a.m. in the morning, keeping you company, saying hello. And then the next day, Saturday, Christmas Day, oh yes, right here with you again. Jana Marie will be here, Ask a Deaf Person, doing her thing. And Sunday as well, 11 a.m. Eastern. Jana Marie right back here in the saddle, keeping it going. And why do we do this? Why not take time off? Why not vacation? Well, this stream is very new. We are in the process of pressing forward, finding new people, and especially on the holidays, some people don't have anything else to do. They don't have family. They don't have anything important. So they're maybe a little lonely or a little bored, and they want to hang out and do some stuff, and hey, we feel the same way, so we will do that together. Best we can. And some people don't even celebrate that holiday that's coming up tomorrow and on Saturday. And maybe they want content. Maybe they want to say hello and engage. And so here we are engaging and saying hello. Hello, we're engaging. Down, up, who knows? We're here for you. So, this happened last night. Oh yeah. Matrix Resurrections. The fourth movie in the Matrix, saga. I don't know what we're calling it. And Jana Marie and I watched it together. It's 2.5 hours long, which is a little long. It's in theaters and playing exclusively for the next 30 days on HBO Max. And we watched it on HBO Max. I thought it was, I'm not going to give any spoilers. I thought it was interesting. I thought the first hour was really pretty darn good. And then it slows down because it has to explain things. And then it picks up again. And then it slows down as we do endless chasing and endless fighting. And then it sort of resolves comfortably. And then it pushes the resolution right at the very end, which is just full of explanation. But I would rank this the second best Matrix movie. The first one you can't beat, which is true of any kind of franchise. The first movie is always the best movie. So Matrix, the original, number 1. This one, number 4, is the best, second best Matrix movie. And then the other two were just ridiculous. Political, sexual revolution stuff, hidden as repression, wasn't very interesting. But Matrix Resurrections is quite interesting. And one bit of feedback from Jana Marie that will not ruin the movie is she did not fully buy into the love story. I did. And I'm not really a romantic, but I thought it worked. I thought that was the driving force. But you will decide. And if you decide to watch Matrix Resurrections, get in touch and let us know what you think. You can reach me via email, david@boles.tv, or Jana at Jana. Wait, pause. New thought. Jana at boles.tv. Another one of the friends of this wonderful live broadcast is Dora, and sometimes she sends us lovely videos and images. And this is a wonderful video she took of the beach. Very tranquil and calming. A New York beach which will remain undescribed, undefined, ill-defined, undefined, redefined, refinery. And Dora said, yeah, put this up and, you know, put it on a loop so it just plays. And I'm thinking, okay, easier said than done to make a video loop. I suppose there are programs that just will endlessly loop a video, or you could code a little web page to keep reloading the video and looping the video, or you can just be like me and keep hitting play to keep looping the video. 13-second video. And then I thought, well, I have a couple of... excuse me. It's hotboxing time. You know what that means. Our neighbors are having a good time at 9 a.m. every morning, and they're not including me. Well, I guess they are including me because I'm being hotboxed. And I'm trying to use these videos to calm me down. So I thought, hey, what could I do to loop this video? So I thought, well, there are programs online that you can use for free where you upload the video, say, make a GIF out of it, and see if it keeps playing. So I thought, I'll give it a shot. And so I did. And I'll show you what I came up with. Oh, there's Dora. Good morning. I don't know why I'm not seeing these. Is it on HBO Max? Yes, it is on HBO Max. And it's worth the time. It was, I thought, very interesting. But you sort of have to know the original Matrix movie. But they do put in little callbacks to the original movies, which is really terrific, I think. So this is the result of Dora's order to me to loop her video. And this is the difference in size and technology and experience. This is a GIF file, an image file. I want to say based on, but made from her original movie that just loops and loops and loops. Now, you'll notice there's no sound because this is an image file and not a multimedia file. But it is calming with the music we have playing from Slip.Stream. So one more time. Here's the original with the sound bigger, better defined. Yeah. I think it's moving well. I'm looking at this. Yeah, it's good. And then here is the reduced experience. Looping beach scene. Very calming, very lovely. Now you know how to make a GIF file, yes. And it's very simple. I'm surprised it's free. And there are several services where you just upload your thing and they do it, their thing to it, you download it. I'm shockingly surprised. And I'm sure there are more expensive ways you could do it, but not everything has to cost money. As my Christmas gift, I finally got what I've been asking for 2 weeks, and this is from the lovely Jana Marie. And thank you, Dora, for that lovely video. Keep it coming. I asked Jana Marie, based on her previous Oculus videos, to please go down into the depth of the Oculus, into the little village that they have down there, and walk around and see what you find. And she did, for 1 minute and 39 seconds. And to me, it looks like she found a lot of really miserable people. No one seems to be smiling or happy to be there. Everyone's wearing masks. The workers look worn out. Merry Christmas, everybody. And I love the light show on the floor. It looks even better up close. And they've built this whole little village, this pathway, in the middle of the Oculus. Even though it's a major transportation hub where people have to walk around it. But it's Christmas. I'm being corrected by the cinematographer. That's not true. People were taking pictures. They loved it. The stores are unhappy. Okay. I thought that's what I said, but I guess that's not what I actually said. And I therefore and ultimately apologize to Jana NYC, who is watching this with us from afar. I love the hubbub of all the people. I guess it's hard to see facial expressions when everyone is wearing a mask, or almost everyone is wearing a mask. Yeah, this is true. I'm going to play this again. The people working in the little cart things look very miserable and bored, I guess because no one's buying anything from them. But the general hubbub of the people, they do seem to be very happy. And taking photographs. It's very Christmassy. And it must be hard being in one of those shacks. I wonder if they're hot or they're cold in there. There seems to be a lot of hand sanitizing going on. Maybe it's lotioning, I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm an eager standbyer. I love the idea of the whole thing, though. Oh, mask down. I wonder if those little shacks make money. I'm very curious. Maybe they're making money today as people scramble trying to find a last-minute holiday gift. Oh, there it is. Shop the Oculus. Okay, that must be their Instagram or probably Twitter handle. Very cute. Very nice. It looks a little choppy on the feed, but here where I'm playing it looks great. So thank you to Jana Marie, and just so we know, this is not aimed at anyone in particular, but if you do take a movie with your camera, your personal camera, your cell phone, always take it this way, so it's a panoramic view. That's what these iPhones are meant to do. When you take it this way, it's very hard to see and things are scrunched. And if you ever post that publicly in a group, you will be berated and downvoted because people do not like those kind of videos. They want panoramic videos. Just generally speaking about cinematography on the internet. More specifically speaking about imagery from Jana Marie, she sent me this photograph on her way to work today. And this is just so New York in every single sense of the idea of what New York means. It's Christmassy, it's holiday-ish. It's a snowman Christmas tree, it looks like to me, and a polar bear with a penguin friend. Yeah, right, I'll try to remember that. Not that we're speaking to Jana Marie, specifically. So she sent us this wonderful image of a polar bear and a snowman Christmas tree celebrating holidays. And I said, that's so much fun. And then I said, but I find the seating right outside the display a little strange. I wonder what's going on with that. Because usually they don't want people to sit anywhere in New York City, especially homeless people. They take out benches and chairs. So seeing those chairs, there's like, that's interesting. And she immediately replied back and she said, well, this is in front of a laundromat. And then I look closer at the image and you can see between the snowman and the polar bear, it says laundry right there. And then as you can tell, if you look lower right, that you go down into the basement of that building, and that's where the laundry is. And the chairs are there for you to sit and wait while you're doing your laundry. And I thought, how magnificent. I mean, look, a wrought iron fence, a lovely display, next to probably, on the left side, a, $6 million brownstone. In this lovely brick building, you have a laundry on the streets of New York City. It's very New York. I loved every minute of it. And I thank you, Jana Marie, for sending that to us, sharing it here today. And speaking of Jana Marie, we're getting a special house call tomorrow from Dr. Not Professor, medical pretend Dr. Jana Marie tomorrow, as she gives us a lesson, an ASL lesson in medical terms, medical ideas, medical sentences in American Sign Language around 10:15 tomorrow morning. She'll be here teaching you coronavirus and shots and coughing and runny nose, and maybe she will even show how to build sentences based on the ideas of vocabulary. So the Friday ASL shows are for people who are students of American Sign Language, and these weekend shows are perhaps a little bit more advanced, more conversation-based. Friday is learning, Saturday, Sunday is fun with the teacher. That's how we look at it. What else is going on in the world? This I thought was just great news, especially for the holiday. A big win for disabled people. And for people who are minorities and underserved and disabled and disadvantaged. Mariah Lopez versus the New York City Department of Homeless Services. It was a case concerning the failure of the New York City Department of Homeless Services, DHS, to serve transgender people in safe shelters, meet standards for accessibility to residents with disabilities, and provide residents shelter free from harassment and abuse by staff and security and other personnel. The lawsuit, if you can believe that, it takes 4 years to get this resolved. It's just terrible. The lawsuit was brought in 2017 as a pro se case without lawyers. That means she, as an individual, stood up for herself and for other people like her and said, this is not right. I'm going to do something about it. Ms. Lopez, an Afro-Latina transgender woman with disabilities, and the executive director for STAR, Strategic Alliance for Radical Reform, after DHS denied her shelter placement. Following important wins in the individual case, the Center for Constitutional Rights and co-counsel joined in order to provide support to Ms. Lopez in settlement negotiations. And under the agreement, the city will establish shelter units that serve and affirm trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming TCNC people. Trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming. This is a new phrase for me. TGNC. Trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming people in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Queens, and Manhattan. Provide shelter staff, including contractors, training on the rights of TGNC people, require that shelter staff, including contractors, follow non-discrimination policy and strengthen the complaint investigation process when shelter residents allege anti-trans discrimination or harassment. So that's a big win. You wonder how things are going to change? You wonder how things are going to improve? Well, it doesn't always happen with big corporations or groups. Sometimes individuals just stand up and decide they're going to howl against the wind and take their lives into their own hands and make a change. Here's another wonderful story, fascinating story, about stolen funds and Bitcoin. Now, usually the idea with Bitcoin is once the money is sent, you never see it again. Well, the United States took legal action to seize and return $154 million stolen from Sony Life Insurance. And according to the complaint, this person, Ray Ishii, an employee of Sony Life in Tokyo, diverted $154 million when the company attempted to transfer funds between its financial accounts. And Ishii did this by falsifying transaction instructions, which caused the funds to be transferred to an account that Ishii controlled at a bank in La Jolla, California. I mean, this is, you wonder about the criminal mind and how genius it has to be to go around and fight these things and find ways to rip people off. And imagine if they just would put those criminal ideas to good use. The whole world would be better. These are genius people who have no moral soul, who are just in it for themselves. And I'm reminded of Bill Gates when he was at Microsoft. That Bill Gates said that when he had a complex, difficult task that he needed solved right away, he would look for the laziest person in the room and assign it to them. And people would say, why? Why wouldn't you pick the brightest, the best, the most genius mind you have in the room? Why? Why would you pick the laziest person? And Bill Gates said, because lazy people are inherently lazy. They want to do the least amount of work possible to get from A to B as fast as possible with the least amount of exertion on their end. So if I have a very complex problem that I need solved, I've redacted down to getting from A to B as fast as possible. A lazy person will find that faster than a super genius who will go all around in this way and that way to have some kind of tremendous intellectual resolution to the problem. If I need something done fast and quick and efficiently from A to B so we can go home early, it's the lazy person. So back in La Jolla, we have this $154 million that's been skimmed. And according to court documents, Ishii switched the transfer address for a Sony Life transaction to use a Silvergate bank account under his control. Ishii later converted the stolen funds into more than 3,879 Bitcoins via a Coinbase setup to automatically transfer all funds to an offline cryptocurrency cold wallet with a Bitcoin address of blah. And the idea is that you take all this real money, these American dollars, you put them in Bitcoin, and you send it to yourself anonymously, no tracking, no tracing, and the money's yours. They can't get it back because it's a one-way transaction with Bitcoin. That's the whole idea of Bitcoin, is that it's not under government control. Well, we'll see about that. After converting the money to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ishii also tried persuading his supervisor. This is where the criminal genius mind is in full display, not even hiding. Ishii tried to persuade his supervisor and several Sony Life executives not to help investigators by emailing them a ransom note typed in both English and Japanese. Quote, if you accept the settlement, we will return the funds back. If you are going to file criminal charges, it will be impossible to recover the funds, the note read. We might go down behind all of this, but one thing is for sure, you are going to be right there next to us. We strongly recommend to communicate with any third parties, including law enforcement. Delusional. Doris has absolutely right. And many super criminal geniuses are delusional. However, on December 1st, following an investigation in collaboration with Japanese law enforcement authorities, the FBI was able to seize back all that Bitcoin that was stuffed in Ishii's wallet after obtaining the private key, which is very tricky and very sneaky, which made it possible to transfer all the Bitcoin back into the FBI's Bitcoin wallet. Now, the private key thing is very interesting because the private key is supposed to be yours and yours alone. And it's usually a series of 12 completely unrelated words that serve as the password for access to your Bitcoin wallet. And there are many places online that try to get you to share those words to unlock your purse, your wallet, so people can get in and steal your money. But that information is supposed to be secret and hashed and salted, and no one can get access to it. However, the FBI was able to convince Coinbase, hey, you're you and we're us. Break into his wallet or whatever. Get us the passwords, the 12 words, so we can unlock that wallet and transfer all the information back to our wallet. Get the money back. Was it a backdoor or was it just a direct request? And why was Bitcoin or the FBI able to get that information? It's very interesting, and we'll talk a little bit more about that upon my return from a blood pressure break. I will see you momentarily. Thanks for being here. We are back from break. Thank you for being here. I'm David Boles. Merry Christmas, happy holidays almost. I guess it is. I don't know. The 23rd? Tomorrow's the 24th? Talking about Bitcoin and clawing it back, and how the FBI can break into your Bitcoin wallet, it appears, at any time they wish to take back your money. So don't think there's any safety in cryptocurrency, because even though they pretend there is, there really isn't. And your passwords, your series of passwords, are very important, so keep those hidden. Some people write them on a piece of paper and put them in a safe deposit box. Other people engrave them into a series of coins that they store at different places around the house and in the area. Some people bury that information because that's the key to opening any cryptocurrency wallet, or your series of challenge phrases, words. And if you forget them and you get locked out of your wallet, then you're not going to get back into it. I don't even think with the FBI's help. Something's happening over here. Well, the other big news of the day is my favorite punching bag. Student loan debt. Oh yes, we're getting into this just very briefly. Excuse me, because Joe Biden is just the most fascinating, confused person that I've ever had the honor of having served as my president. And that includes Donald Trump. Yesterday, the Biden administration announced it will extend a pause on student loan payments through May 1st. Or 2 days ago, they said, too bad. You've known for 2 years you're paying your loans, and you're going to pay them starting in February. And people complained. I complained. Other people complained. Many people complained and pushed back. So, on a whim, it seems, oh, well then, okay, you don't have to pay them back right now. And all this time, Biden says, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just the president. I asked Congress to fix it, but they're not doing anything. So there's nothing that can be done. You're paying in February. But now President Biden depicts the move as an essential step to help millions of borrowers at a moment of ongoing public health challenges. Now, while our jobs recovery is one of the strongest ever, with nearly 6 million jobs added this year, if U.S. Americans filing for unemployment, we know millions of student loan borrowers are still coping with the impacts of the pandemic. Oh, now he gets it. And needs some more time before resuming their payments, which they will because I'm owned by the big banks. I'm Joe Biden, the senator from Delaware. This has been an issue Vice President Harris has been closely focused on, and one we both care deeply about. You didn't 2 days ago, and now suddenly you do. Is it Omicron? No. Given these considerations, today my administration is extending the pause on federal student loan payments for an additional 90 days through May 1st of 2022 as we manage the ongoing pandemic and further strengthen our economic recovery. Many activists had pushed for the administration to take the step, but the White House initially resisted extending the moratorium. Well, now here we go. Does Joe Biden have a calendar? Does anybody in the White House have a calendar? Do they look at it? Do they mark important dates, important times, things that are coming up? First, he said he had no authority to change anything. Oh, there's Dora. See, how can you trust any campaign promise as a platform? I agree. There's no trust, so why vote for anybody? It just creates apathy. And that's one thing Trump did, is he put money into people's pockets, and he said, don't pay these loans for 2 years. Which got him a lot of credit in the furious student loan category. But my question to Joe Biden is, why May 1st? Okay, April, if you are a cogent human being, is a terrible month, really, for most Americans. because taxes are due on the 15th. And most people who have loans and who have jobs and who want to keep as much money as they have usually have to pay a little something in to the IRS. Now, that's frowned upon, but there are many people, one of whom I used to be, who say, I want all my money during the year. I don't want the U.S. government holding my money in their account where I'm not getting interest on it, and then they give me my money back, a couple of $1,000s, whatever, in April. And it's a very fine line trying to so you don't owe anything. That's the big game. You want to do it so I don't have to pay in, and I don't want any money back. Some people get $7,000, $8,000 back from the government in a tax refund. And I say, why do that? And people who have student loans don't do that because if you owe money on your student loans, the government will hold your tax refund. So people who owe money, people who are behind, people who have student loans who live in fear of the government, as you should, fear that if I get a $3,000 refund, the IRS is going to give it to the U.S. Department of Education. So I would rather pay in $500, pay in $1,700, whatever it is. Hello, thank you for following. Gabriel Everhart. I would rather pay into the government, and if I have to pay a penalty for not paying enough over the year, I'll pay $50, whatever it is. But I don't want to have them hold my money that they can then divert to the Department of Education. It's the game. So if you know this game, or you're familiar with it, or you're listening to your advisors, Joe Biden, why would you pick May 1st to start resuming payments on these loans when most of the people who are getting this relief are paying in to the IRS in April? And in these student loan groups, people are talking, saying, well, this is just ridiculous. We haven't had to pay for 2 years. The economy's never doing better. They don't need our money. All the banks need the money. That's what the Wall Street Journal says. And people who read the Wall Street Journal. Well, make the colleges responsible for these loans. Then they'll lower tuition and no one will have this problem. Okay, all that's true, but that doesn't help now, and that doesn't help what happened in the past. And there are people in these groups who are saying, I'm not paying one more dollar into these student loan things because the whole thing is messed up. We're never going to get out from under. What is the point of paying? And other people are saying that they can come after me. They can take 15% of my Social Security, which they can and will do if you don't pay. They can try to ruin my credit, but go ahead because everyone's credit is already ruined if you're of a certain age with the student loan debt. And let them come after me, they say, not me. Because the whole system is broken. So they can chase me down and try to make me pay, but I'm not paying anymore. I understand that. I understand it. So, thinking of the calendar, May comes. Are people going to start paying back the loans in May? I don't think so. I think he's going to have to extend it again. So let's say he extends it another 90 days. May, June, July, August. Okay, August, September. If he would have been smart, he just would have said, look, we'll have another year to recover. Because what's happening in November of 22? What's happening September, October of 22? It's the midterm elections. And people who have student loans are very angry, and they're very vicious, and they want revenge on a system that is not treating them fairly. And they're vocal and they vote. So Joe Biden is going to have these loans start becoming due if he extends it again right before the midterm elections? Do they have a calendar? Do they know what's going on in the world? And maybe they just don't care. Joe Biden's owned by the big banks. Joe Biden doesn't care if you vote for him or not. He wants you to pay his people who have paid him money in one way or another over his 30 year in the Senate, the big banks. So here's the reaction to this Joe Biden extension, which I find fascinating analysis. By extending the moratorium until May 1st, Biden merely delays the questions he can't evade forever. Will he carry out the modest debt relief he promised? Or will he demur, swayed by arguments against cancellation? According to some, student debt is an elite problem, and Biden has shown himself susceptible to that rhetoric. The government, he said last February, should not forgive the debt of those who went to Harvard, Yale, and Penn. Those are obvious cracks in the president's commitment to student debt cancellation, pandemic notwithstanding, and that should concern debtors and their advocates. And this is the most prescient part of this article. Student loan debt is not a problem for elites. It principally troubles the very families Biden says he wants to help. As the cost of college increases everywhere, financial burdens fall heaviest on the middle class and poor families whose chances of social mobility rest often on a college education. The debt crisis penalizes middle and low-income students, whether they attend a commuter school or Harvard. They pay for dreaming of anything better at all. Wow. It's beautiful and scorching. Let's continue. People who default on their student loan debt also tend to come from poor backgrounds. The vast majority of defaulters are older, more likely to be financially independent than other borrowers, and more likely to come from low-income families. In fact, roughly 90% of defaulters have received a Pell Grant, and 40% fall into the bottom quartile of the income distribution. Biden's original plan to give $10,000 student loan debt would certainly help this problem. Further, rather than borrowing excessively to finance degrees, the median defaulter owes just under $10,000. While President Biden bides his time, debtors inhabit a peculiar American purgatory. The moratorium is a buffer between pain and the debtor. But it's not salvation, either. Biden holds that possibility in his hands. Public pressure preserved the moratorium for now, and perhaps will do so again. Well, if you look at the calendar, I don't think he's going to have a choice. He's going to have to put it off a year if he has any hope of retaining Democrat control of the Senate or the Congress. Even if the pandemic has eased by May 1st, debtors have one other bit of leverage. If repayment goes into effect ahead of midterm elections, the administration will be guilty of catastrophic political error. Whether Joe Biden realizes this or not is unclear. Well, he clearly does not realize it and does not care. He cannot read a calendar. It is clear, though, that debtors deserve more from the president. Biden's current approach to student loan debt is simply unsustainable over the near term. He should listen to Sanders, Warren, Schumer. But even if he won't, the bit of relief he once promised is preferable to confusion and delays. Quit dithering and cancel the debt. And if you think about it, you have 17-year-old kids who are stuck somewhere, who know their only way out of their poverty or their situation or their home condition is to get a higher education somewhere, and they need to get the heck out. So they're 17 years old, 18 years old, can't vote, maybe can vote, can't drink alcohol. And they go and they say, okay, I want $100,000 in loans, student loans, to pay for me to get out of here and to go to school and have a better life. And I'll pay 20% interest over my lifetime. As a 17, 18-year-old, I understand exactly what that means, and I'm going. And they have no idea what they've done. Until it's too late. Well, here we go. Biden's comments on student loan debt puts him on a collision course, thank goodness, with progressive lawmakers vowing to increase pressure on the administration to cancel student loan debt for millions of borrowers. Americans owe an estimated $1.7 trillion in student loans, a record-breaking total, according to the Federal Reserve. Thank you, Joe Biden. Next step, cancellation. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York tweeted along with a video of Biden's announcement. I applaud President Biden for once again pausing federal student loan payments for 45 million Americans. Now let's cancel it, all of it, says Bernie Sanders of Vermont. This is what happens when we all come together to raise our voices. I agree with that. Extending the student loan payment pause is a huge step forward that will help people get through this pandemic. Now let's keep pushing until the President of the United States cancels all student loan debt. Representative Cory Bush of Missouri tweeted. So, there you have it. Joe Biden did the wrong thing, but not really the right thing, because it's all temporary. And those of us who know Joe Biden know how he feels about this, because he's not kept it a secret. He's not on our side. He pretends to be on the side of the middle class and the downtrodden, but when it comes down to it, he really is not. He has no sense of what's happening. And that's unfortunate. Because we need Joe Biden. And we need him engaged, and we need him involved. And now he says he is going to run for re-election if he's feeling good. And if it's against Donald Trump, he probably needs to run. Now we'll briefly have a chat about this terrible coronavirus thing that's everywhere and encompassing us all. Now they're saying Omicron, oh, it's okay, it's more contagious, it's stickier, but you might not have to go to the hospital. You'll be sick, but it's not as bad as Delta. As if that's good news. I don't understand the spin. I don't think anybody should want to get COVID, but I guess it's just out there everywhere. People all around us are getting sick. Especially in New York. So, according to numbers tracked by Johns Hopkins, we know that 800,000 Americans have died from COVID-19. However, there are some in the scientific community who believe that number is low. It's an undercount. The Human Mortality Database suggests that about 2.5 million more Americans have died since the onset of the pandemic than what was originally expected by actuaries. And actuaries are really fascinating people. Their job is to calculate how much a life is worth and how soon someone's going to die, and what we should charge them for life insurance, and how much we should pay out if they lose a limb or they lose an eye in an accident. That 2.5 million Americans dead is a figure that includes the effects of deferred medical care and record drug overdoses. So these actuaries, whose job it is to figure out who's going to die and when, say, well, it's not 800,000 people who have died from COVID, it's really 2.5. And many communities are underreporting it or misreporting it. Blaming it on old age, blaming it on something else, pneumonia, the flu, but not on COVID, because that's politically inconvenient for red states. Last year saw the largest drop in U.S. life expectancy since World War II, unwinding all the health gains and longevity gains we've had since 2003. And this is a problem because the funeral industry is hurting and rejoicing at the same time. Strict social distancing norms meant burials were intimate affairs and not as profitable because people chose to cremate instead of bury. And I guess cremation is a lot cheaper than digging into the ground and buying a plot and a headstone. The pandemic also made it difficult to sell pre-need services in the funeral industry. Funerals and cemetery plots often sold years in advance, and the funds were then put into escrow. Well, people aren't needing that because they don't want that anymore. They just want to be cremated, or they don't want to think about dying. So why pre-plan? The surge in middle-aged deaths has been bad news, pandemically speaking, for life insurers, these actuaries. People in that age, middle age, are more likely to have group life insurance through their employer or term policies in force rather than senior citizens or young people. After being flat for years, death benefits paid by U.S. insurers jumped by 15% in 2020, according to the Insurance Information Institute. Well, that's bad news for actuaries and insurance companies when you have people in their prime with good life insurance dying and you have to pay out. It messes up your actuarial tables. That's what a pandemic does. People die and they want to get their money. The families want the money. And the actuaries are saying, wait a minute. Pandemic? Who saw that coming? Well, we can't blame it on COVID because then we'll have to pay. We have to find some other reason. And policies, health insurance policies that are already in place, can't be changed or revoked because people are paying into them, conveniently looking like geniuses. Oh, I've been paying on my life insurance for 10 years and now everybody's getting COVID. So if I die, my family will be taken care of. And the insurance companies are freaking out. Existing policies, coverages can't change, and being unvaccinated has not joined smoking as a risk factor, reflected in new underwriting. Perhaps because insurers still view COVID-19 as a temporary phenomenon. But I imagine moving forward, look out. These life insurance carriers make a lot of money. And they make bets on your life and your death and how soon it's going to come for you. So, we hear about this long COVID, where you get COVID, oh, I had COVID, it was nothing. And then your lungs start deteriorating and you have kidney problems and diabetes and your blood pressure rises. And you don't think these insurance companies are going to go back and say, now, wait a minute. You want to increase your coverage? You want to pay out? Well, let's do a few tests. Let's see if you're overweight. Let's see if you have any residual lung disease from this COVID-19 you had. Because they got to find ways not to pay out. When you buy life insurance, you're making a bet that if everything goes well and you die properly, that your family's going to be taken care of. But that's not the game. The game is to not pay. The game is to threaten to not pay. And so they're going to go to these families, I'm sure, and say, well, your dad had $1 million life insurance policy, and we've done some investigation, and it looks like he had long COVID, and he had black spots in his lungs that was, he didn't wear a mask. He was a year late in getting vaccinated, so, his policy was worth $1 million. But, we could say this is, he lacked self-care. I'm not saying suicide, but he didn't care about himself, and he was a little overweight. So we're going to offer you right now, take it or leave it, $300,000. And if you don't take it, then we're going to deny your claim of $1 million, and we'll see you in court. Now, what poor grieving family is going to be able to stand up to that kind of pressure and say, no. Dad paid in for 30 years. We want the full mill. His insurance doesn't say anything about long COVID or being overweight. Pay up. And the insurance companies are going to say, go ahead and try. And with that, it's time for a very brief blood pressure break. I'll see you momentarily. We are back from break. I'm David Boles here, streaming live with you today on Boles.tv. BOLES.tv. Streaming live with you every weekday morning at 9 a.m. And at 11 a.m. on the weekends, Jana Marie is here. And she provides wonderful chat and conversation in her show, Ask a Deaf Person, where she talks about American Sign Language and disability and worker rights and job placement and any kind of thing you want to know or need to know. You can show up and chat and ask her. You can also email her, Jana at Boles.tv. And you can also ask me via email, David at Boles.tv. Well, this cancel culture thing is our next topic. I think the whole thing is really fascinating and really unfortunate. And it's all bound together in Me Too and You Too and Who's Too. And some people, I guess, deserve to be canceled, and other people, I'm not so sure. But this is really not a new thing, as we're going to discover. At the start of the 20th century, ethnic minorities objected to the way they were being portrayed on stage in entertainment. Does comedy, the idea that we're discussing, does comedy rely on discrimination and making fun of certain people? And I'm old, in my 50s, and I remember the Pollock joke, the gay joke, and you tell them and people would laugh. I wouldn't tell them, but other people would tell them and would laugh. It was a big thing. There were books you could buy about joking, making fun of ethnic people. And that's how you kind of keep them down, as you make fun of them. You make them the butt of the joke. Instead of airing grievances on the not yet to be invented internet, many delivered their objections in person. Irish and Italian immigrants were vocal at the turn of the century. Vaudeville comic Walter Kelly received a letter threatening his life if he did not immediately cut out several Italian stories in his act. An Irish betterment organization called the Clan Na Gael pelted comedians with eggs for perceived slights against the Irish. And that, to me, is the right way to stand up. You make your objections known to people who are discriminating against you and tell them to stop. I remember Johnny Carson in the 70s. Would put on a lisp and tell jokes about gay people. And the gay person's name that he would always use was Bruce. B-R-U-C-E, Bruce. And that happened to be my father's name. Now, I don't know my father. I have no relationship with him. But I felt bad for him that, in America, if you were named Bruce, at that time in Johnny Carson's reign as the king of comedy, the suggestion was that you were gay because of your name. And Wayne Newton. You remember Wayne Newton? If you're young, you probably don't know him, but look him up on the internet. He was a big, talented singer, has a very high voice. He was a young pop star in the 50s and 60s, a little overweight, and now he's older, big star in Las Vegas. And Johnny Carson would regularly make fun of Wayne Newton for being, without saying it suggestively, that he was faggy or gay or fey or effeminate. Foppish, I think, is the term. And people in the audience would laugh, and Johnny would laugh, and instead of Bruce being the butt of the gay jokes from Johnny Carson, it was Wayne Newton became the butt of the insinuated gay joke against Wayne Newton. And Wayne Newton is very talented, plays every musical instrument you could ever imagine, and he's also a martial arts master, well trained. And he does it sort of like Elvis on stage, but better than Elvis, because he was actually trained. And one day, Wayne Newton was on the set, NBC, in the area, said, "Where's Johnny Carson?" And he went in to see him, and they said, "You can't see Mr. Carson." And he said, "I'm going to go see him." And he barged into Johnny Carson's office, and Johnny Carson's like, "Meh." And Wayne Newton says, "Look, I want you to stop making fun of me and saying that I'm gay. And there's nothing wrong with gay people, but I'm not gay, and you're suggesting to your audience of millions of people every night that I'm gay. And I want you to knock it off. And if you don't knock it off, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to beat you up." And then he pounded his fist on his desk as hard as he could, and the whole thing rattled and shook. And Johnny Carson said, "Okay, I won't do it again." And Wayne Newton said, "Thank you," and left. And Johnny Carson, from that point on, did not make fun of Bruce or Wayne Newton again. So that's what it takes. Somebody thinks they're funny, they're making a joke at your expense. Are you going to sit there and be the butt of the joke? Or are you going to stand up and fight back and say, "No, I'm not doing that. You're not doing that anymore. And if you won't stop, then I'm going to have to stop you." A newspaper editorial in Kansas feared this would inspire other groups to do the same. If the well-known and almost indispensable Irish policeman is to be abolished from the stage by decree of Clan na Gael, what is to hinder the Afro-American societies from then following suit and threatening dire consequences on the heads of players who represent the stage type of Negro, unquote. There's Jana Marie. And there was a time in America when blackface was a thing, right? Where white performers would go out, put black stuff on their face, and take, some people said it was shoe polish, and take white makeup and put it around their mouths, around their eyes, and they'd pretend to be funny black people. The singer Al Jolson had a whole show that he would do in blackface. And then later, 20, 30 years later, Ted Danson tried to do the same thing in blackface. Look it up. Ted Danson in blackface. And his girlfriend at the time was Whoopi Goldberg. And she said, "Oh, I thought it was funny," trying to defend him. And nobody else did. And Ted Danson doesn't want to talk about that anymore. But the fact is that he did it. Here you go. Ted Danson in blackface. And I guess he thought because his girlfriend was Whoopi Goldberg that he could get away with it, that people would think it's funny. Nobody thought it was funny. It really blew up in his blackface, so to say. So, that's precisely what happened. These African Americans, these Native Americans, and American Jews all staged protests in the early 20th century. In 1903, the Topeka Capitol predicted the death of comedy. The final upshot of protests is to strip comedy of its most engaging and popular features, making fun of people. If the rage should extend to all sorts of people caricatured in the theater and in print, well then goodbye to comedy. That's the threat. And indeed, jokes concerning politics, religion, and sex were taboo for most of the century. Even the most casual, carnal reference could result in arrest. The legendary Mae West wrote a number of popular stage comedies, And for her efforts, she was convicted of obscenity in 1927 and sentenced to 10 days in a prison workhouse. And those obscenity laws that were used to prosecute Mae West and later Lenny Bruce were found unconstitutional in the 1960s, chipped away by the courts under free speech. Freedom of expression flourished as obscenity laws were overturned at the start of the 1970s. But the police department didn't always like what the courts said. Blazing Saddles, a Mel Brooks film released in 1974, was co-written by Richard Pryor, black comedian. While it was playing in theaters, Richard Pryor was arrested in Richmond, Virginia for using the same language on stage that you could hear in the movie Blazing Saddles. His manager was told a warrant had been issued for disorderly conduct. Pryor turned himself in and was released after posting a $500 bond. In that same decade, Sears pulled its sponsorship of Three's Company due to religious pressure. Three's Company was a television sitcom starring John Ritter, Joyce DeWitt, and Suzanne Summers. And they were all roommates. And they were pretending that the John Ritter character was gay so they could all live together. It seems quaint now, but back then that was a big thing. And he would act gay to throw off their landlord and their super who would throw him out otherwise. George Carlin was arrested after cursing. Welcome Back, Kotter was banned in Boston over fears it would trigger disorder because of caricatures on the show. In the 1980s, comedy team Bowery and Wilson were arrested for fart humor. In the 1990s, Andrew Dice Clay canceled a show fearing he'd be arrested on obscenity charges in Texas. All of this occurred long before the words and phrases millennial and safe space and retweet and triggering came along. So people get scared, and now people are saying, oh, well, people are standing up for themselves, so now we can't say anything about anybody, we're going to be in trouble. Bill Cosby very famously said, oh, these young comedians work blue, meaning they tell off-color jokes, sexual jokes, which was kind of funny. That he was setting himself up as the arbiter of what was funny or not, or acceptable or not when it comes to sexuality. And then you have comedians like Jay Leno, who are right down the middle, who are very funny, and dare I say safe, because they're just generally funny, observational humor. They're not picking on a specific minority or people. Jay Leno doesn't really have to censor himself because he's not blue. He doesn't make off-color jokes. But this cancel culture that we live in now causes people to rethink what they're going to share. If you've just met someone, 49% of people are very careful what they say. In the workplace, 40% of people are very careful what they say. They can't be themselves and express themselves because they're scared of being canceled. On social media, 34% are careful. When they're with friends, 31% careful. And when you're with family, 21% are careful of what they say. The family thing I don't think is bad, because families are usually made up of very diverse people. Conservatives on one side and liberals on the other, and usually it's age-related. Then Terry Gilliam is a big superstar director, and he was hoping to direct Into the Woods at the Old Vic. And he had made some comments in the news that got him in big trouble. Gilliam had previously described the Me Too movement as a witch hunt, adding there were many decent people who were getting hammered as the industry grappled with sexual abuse. Now, there's truth in that. There is truth in the Me Too movement, and there is exaggeration in the Me Too movement. We know that. Several allegations were made against the Old Vic's former artistic director, Kevin Spacey, as part of the Me Too movement, which began in 2017. Well, last year, Terry Gilliam told the Independent newspaper he was tired of white men being blamed for everything wrong in the world. Well, right there, you're going to be in big trouble. It may be true, but you really can't say it out loud because you're going to get smacked in the face. In the same interview, he said, "When I announce that I'm a black lesbian in transition, people take offense of that. Why?" Okay, so Terry Gilliam is old and maybe not self-aware and maybe not paying attention to the world around him. And I don't think you can say that kind of thing today and get away with it without people standing up and saying, "Wait a minute, what do you mean? Are you trying to be funny or are you just trying to be a jerk?" And Terry Gilliam also recently defended comedian Dave Chappelle, whose most recent comedy special included comments deemed by some to be transphobic. After some younger Old Vic, name of the theater, was going to do Into the Woods, directed by Terry Gilliam. After some younger Old Vic staffers reportedly raised concerns about hosting Gilliam's production, it's understood the theater's management held meetings with producers in the spring, and Terry Gilliam was out. Now they're doing the show somewhere else, but Terry Gilliam was canceled. His show was canceled. J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter, author, she's in trouble too. "If sex isn't real," she wrote on Twitter, "there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth." Well, she got in a lot of trouble for that. The idea that women like me, J.K. Rowling wrote, who've been empathetic trans people for decades, feeling kinship because they're vulnerable in the same way as women, i.e. male violence, hate trans people because they think sex is real and has lived consequences is nonsense. I respect every trans person's right to live in a way that feels authentic and comfortable to them. I'd march with you if you were discriminated against on the basis of being trans. At the same time, my life has been shaped by being female. I do not believe it's hateful to say so. Well, people did not really agree with J.K. Rowling. They went after her because she was pretty much saying, look, there are two sexes, male and female, and you're born one of them, and that's the way it goes. And she's been paying for it ever since. And she has a long blog post explaining her position, and people are saying, no, what you're saying is not right. And just because, you got out of a bad marriage and you were sexually abused doesn't give you the right to contextualize our experience based on your experience. One of the most interesting recent condemnations of insensitivity in comedy is Kathy Griffin. When Trump was elected, Kathy Griffin took this photograph with a Trump head, a bloody head, and holding it up. A beheaded likeness of Donald Trump. And it got her under a lot of trouble. And she made one big mistake in doing this. And the mistake was not in doing it, because she was being funny and she was making a statement, and you either laughed or you didn't laugh. You either liked it or you didn't like it. Take it or leave it. It's your decision. We live in a free world. The fatal mistake she made is that she apologized. If you are a comedian and you have a reputation for being raunchy and aggressive and irritating, and you have based your entire career on being that way, you cannot suddenly transform yourself into a weak and middling person who's full of apologies. And I understand why she felt she had to apologize, because she was being threatened with her life. People were after her. And the real Kathy Griffin that we know and loved and respected would have said, look, get over it, leave me alone. But she didn't. She crumbled. She changed. She went back. And her adversaries jumped at the opportunity to kill her and to go after her even more, because she presented herself as being weak and vulnerable and susceptible to pressure. And there was no amount of apologizing she could do that would satisfy these radicals on the other side of her attempt at comedy. And Donald Trump came after her and said, you made Barron, my son, cry. He saw that picture of me with the bloody face and thought it was me. And what are you going to say to that? Lying or not, what are you going to say to that? You give them the high road. Not by what you did, but by what you did after. By backing down and saying, oh, I didn't mean that. And what Kathy Griffin didn't realize is this image is not going away. It's all over the internet. You search Kathy Griffin, bloody Donald Trump head. You're going to see image after image after image of this. So you can't take it back. You can't apologize for it. You did it. You done it. So just own it and say, I thought it was funny at the time. And leave it at that. Let them condemn you all you want, but don't back down from what you thought was the right thing to do. Because this wasn't spontaneous. This was not of the moment. This was not an utterance of the mouth that can be retraced and retracted. This was planned. You had a very nice blue shirt on. You had your hair combed. The bloody head of Donald Trump was prepared for you, and you held it out. This was planned and purposeful, Kathy. Following intense online backlash, Kathy Griffin apologized for the images, despite initially defending them. I sincerely apologize, she said in a video on Twitter. I went way too far. The image is just too disturbing. I understand how it offends people. It wasn't funny, I get it. She added, begging for everyone's forgiveness, that she will ask the photographer to take down the image. Well, how did that work out for you, Kathy? Is the image down? Thank you for the follow. How did that work out? Telling the photographer to take down the image. Didn't work out so great. And of course, by backing down and showing weakness and what am I going to do with myself? Well, CNN fired her from the New Year's show that she had done for many years with Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper did not support Kathy Griffin, wrote her off, said he was outraged and insulted, did not stand with her at all. He was a coward. Anderson Cooper is a coward. He could have stood with his friend of many years and said, I love and respect Kathy. In this instance, I didn't think it was very funny. But I respect her right to not be funny. Leave it at that. You don't have to condemn her. You don't have to make a public statement that makes you look good, Anderson. So Kathy didn't work for a long time. People canceled her shows. Finally, I think she went to some foreign countries and started touring a little bit and making a little bit of money. But it's a very important lesson, especially if you're trying to be funny in cancel culture. Because people will cancel you as quickly as they can and try to shut you up and tamp you down. And you can fight back and you can win or you can lose. But as long as you're being true to yourself, I think you're going to be okay. And I don't think down deep that Kathy Griffin thinks she did anything wrong with this. I think she was making a political statement that wasn't necessarily hilariously funny. But there are people who respect her for standing up against what turned out to be a terrible president. But she gave him the higher road of being insulted and wounded and bringing in his child and the First Lady condemning her and everyone condemning her and threatening her life. And what did you get out of that apology, Kathy Griffin? You got absolutely nothing. You did not win the day. And on that note, we're taking our final blood pressure break of the day. I will see you momentarily. We are back. Wonderful to have you with us today. Interesting conversation. I thank you so much for being here. I'm David Boles, and this is Boles.tv. BOLES.tv. On break, I was trying to figure out, are we still online or not? Because one of our computers in the other room that I usually watch on break to see where we are and what's happening said, system error. Cannot load the page. I think we're live. Are we live? Are we not live? I don't know anymore. I think we're live. Wave if you're saying hello. So we talked about cancel culture and how things evolve on the internet and how people try to be funny, and sometimes you're just not funny. Sometimes you try to be funny and you make a joke and some people are insulted, and you can either say, okay, I didn't mean it that way, or something like that, but you can't take it back because it's been said, it's out there. So either own it or not own it. And that's what Donald Trump, he always says, you never apologize. No matter what you do, you never apologize. And if someone apologizes to him, does he accept it and say, oh, thank you so much, I appreciate your apology? No, he leaps on it. He extends it. He attacks you even more. And if the whole Kathy Griffin thing had been reversed, what do conservatives, what do Republicans say when somebody's insulted like that? They say F you, or they say, oh, snowflake, work on your feelings. That's how they would handle it. They would not say what Kathy Griffin said. I'm so sorry. I made an error in judgment. I'll have it taken down. Never. That's the lesson we learn. Doesn't mean you're insensitive. You can be sensitive. But you have to be careful how you do it, or you'll be eaten alive. Because there are people who are making political plays against you, and you have to be aware of that. So speaking of social media, what do people think of social media? Do you trust it or do you not trust it? Well, here we are on a live stream together, streaming, chatting, having fun together. Where? Facebook. 72% of people do not trust Facebook at all. 20% trust it okay. 8% don't care. I think that's very interesting. Facebook has been blamed for a lot of ills in our society, and we talk about comedy and cancel culture and what's funny and not funny, and there's no way to police that kind of conversation that's just ongoing and never-ending with human beings. So they turn it over to computers, and computers are often wrong, and computers cancel accounts and shut people down and don't let them speak, and it's a big mess. But there are not enough people to do it, and they do have people on Facebook who watch content and videos and decide if it can be aired or not, and a lot of these videos are, terrible things, child pornography, people getting killed, animals being tortured, and then they suffer because they're the arbiter of allowing it or not allowing it. And eventually some person has to watch it and make that decision. That would be traumatic. Do people trust TikTok? 63% no. Isn't that interesting? I read an article this morning about somebody who lives in the Bronx saying they don't like these influencers on TikTok who claim that they're from New York. All they do is show wealth and glitz and glamour. It has nothing to do with the grittiness of New York City. And yet they're called influencers, and they're paid a lot of money for being, quote, from New York. That's good. We need more of that. Do you trust WhatsApp? 53% no. Do you trust YouTube? 53% no, which is interesting to me because YouTube seems to be sort of egalitarian. If you read or watch someone's video or live stream on YouTube and you don't like it, you can reply right back to it, either in text or in your own video. The Google, 47%, do not trust. Microsoft, 42%, Apple, 40%, Amazon 40. Now, isn't that interesting? You think Amazon would be a little higher up on if you trust them or not? Not necessarily for social media, but a lot of these are social medias. These are big companies that are involved in social media. Amazon owns Twitch, so they are in social media. And who is the most trusted? Amazon. Very interesting. Apple. Google is trusted 48%. Amazon is trusted 53%. Facebook is trusted only 20%. How often do you think that your phone or other technical device listens to you in ways you do not want? I found this interesting and slightly paranoid. Now, I know Mark Zuckerberg, on his computers, which I believe at one time used to be Apple computers, covers his camera, the built-in camera, with tape and covers up the microphones on both sides. So, in case there's malware on his computer, people can't listen to it. And if he wants to webcam or talk to somebody, then he uncovers it with tape. Now, that I understand. He's a target. But are most Americans targets? Most Americans think that they are being targeted. They're being targeted by Bill Gates. They're being targeted by the Chinese. They're so important. They're being watched every day of their lives. Well, 35% of people think that their phone is spying on them, is listening to them when they don't want it to be. Somewhat often, your phone is spying on you, 37%. That's very interesting. I don't know where that's coming from. I find it sort of socially dismaying that people think that even though they haven't given permission for their phones to spy on them, their phone is spying on them anyway. But I also don't understand people who think that 5G is somehow a problem with COVID, or that when you get a COVID vaccine, you're being implanted with some kind of microchip. I don't understand that kind of thinking. I understand it's out there. I just don't understand where it's coming from or how it ends. Despite the catch-all term big tech, the biggest technology companies are not all viewed in the same negative light. The businesses that sell goods or services directly to people are more frequently and favorably admired, like Apple and Amazon. It's the social media companies where the services are offered up ostensibly free that causes unsettling in Americans. After years of privacy experts warning that, hey, it's free because you're the product, perhaps the reality of what that really means has started to be fully absorbed. And that's a good point. What do you expect? You get everything for free, and what are they getting in return? You have to ask yourself that. You're giving them access to all of your photographs and your intimate thoughts and who your friends are and where you live and where you drive. Tech companies have no-cost products such as social media apps, search engines, dating apps, and email. In exchange, they collect data and feed the online marketing and advertising industry while profiting off of it. The biggest goal of collecting data is to serve up narrowly targeted advertising. Two companies dominate. The Google earned $147 billion with a B dollars in revenue from advertising in 2020. 80% of its income is from advertising. While the Facebook earned $84 billion in revenue from advertising, 98% of its profits on Facebook come from advertising. And when we say advertising, what are we talking about? We're talking about you, and we're talking about me. You are the product. You are the ad. Without you, there is no advertising. Without you, you cannot sell somebody access to your information. You are the product. You are the data. You are the prime mover in these social media paradigms. And you should just be careful out there, because there are not good people who are trying to take advantage of you. I don't think that they're listening to you on your phone, though. That's kind of a big step. Now, if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google device, you say, "Hey Google," and they're listening to you, and you instruct it to listen for the keyword, then they might be listening to parts of what you're saying and recording you surreptitiously or unsurreptitiously. But you can always opt out of that. Just make sure you know what's going on. Make sure you know what you're signing up for. Because the more access you have, the more freedom you lose. And with that, I thank you so much for being here today on our live stream. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Weekends, 11 a.m. with Jana Marie. Dr. Jana making house calls tomorrow around 10:15 a.m. as she teaches you some fun phrases, medical phrases, in American Sign Language. If you want to get in touch, you can find me on Twitter at David Boles. Facebook, I'm just regular old Boles Boles. Instagram, Boles Books. Discord, I'm David Boles. And if you want to find me an email, send me some, david@boles.tv. And if you want to talk to Jana Marie, send her an email, jana@boles.tv. And I hope to see you tomorrow, 9 a.m., fresh, right here. If you have any ideas you want to share, let me know. Step into our live chat and have a conversation. I appreciate you being here. I thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day or night, wherever you happen to be at this moment. I'll see you tomorrow.